Hey, it's J.R. Lay, and I'd like to welcome you back to the Banking on Digital Growth podcast. Let me ask you something. When was the last time that your marketing report made you feel confident? Or maybe your marketing reports that you're sharing are making you feel confused. Maybe they're making other people feel confused, because too often we find that financial marketers, they're buried deep in metrics that look impressive on the surface, but they really don't actually move the needle. Vanity metrics, things like clicks, impressions, follower counts, email open rates. But what about the metrics that matter most? Things like completed applications, booked loans, deposits opened, assets. That's why joining me for today's conversation is my co-host, Derik Krauss, because together we're going to cut through the noise to talk about the metrics that matter most when it comes to measuring marketing performance. That's because if you're not measuring progress with your marketing the right way, you're not managing growth, and you're probably just guessing. But before we jump in, if you want to stop guessing and start growing, you're going to learn how your website is really performing. And my friends over at Metrify can help. Just text me right now, 832-240-1922, because I want to send you a free website benchmark study that can help you compare, that can help you see how you compare when it comes to your website performance, and most importantly, how you can improve it. Let's get into the show. Let's talk measuring performance, Derik, because when we think about performance, I feel like I'm going back to grade school, man. It's like I'm getting measured. I'm getting a grade.
Standardized testing all over again.
Oh, don't even start with the standardized testing stuff. How'd you do on your SATs? You remember your SAT scores?
Yep. Actually, I don't remember my SAT scores. I went to Brigham Young University, and they didn't really care about SAT. They cared about the ACT.
Okay.
Yeah. So ACT, I remember I didn't study at all, and I figured I would just go in and take it and see how it went. And first time I took it, I got a 26, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna take it again, and I'm gonna study this time. And I didn't, but I took it again and got a 27. And then the thing that the science, I think I did pretty well on all of the sections except like the science section. For some reason threw me off. Like I didn't understand what they wanted, and you'd think I would have figured out. Since that happened to me the first time, I would have like fixed it for the next time. But I don't know. I was a kid, and I was, had better things to do, like hang out with girls. So,
It's funny. You talk about, so I did the SATs twice, and then I did the GMAT for my MBA. And my SATs, first time I took it, I got a 990 on it. I think like the perfect SAT is like 1500.
okay.
So, okay, I'm gonna take it again. And then I did the whole thing. Like I did the PSAT and like Princeton, Young, or whatever all that stuff was back in the day. I took it the second time, dude. It was a 950. My performance, it dropped.
Oh, it was 990 and then 950.
950.
Oh man.
These standardized tests, and I've never been one, to test very well. Even my GMAT, like I intentionally did not study for it. I partied a little too hard the night before, which was a different period in my life. I'm not the person I was, and I walked in, and how do you say this? Had a little bit of a headache.
Yeah.
I walked in, and
yeah,
it was good enough to get accepted to Rice University in Houston.
awesome.
And I got accepted to Rice, and very nice school, very great. It was a good school. And so I went to talk to the admissions, and like, Mr. Lay, we'd be honored to have you join our MBA program. And I'm like, wonderful. And they're like, well, there's one issue. I said, well, what is that? They're like, you're going to have to quit your business. So what do you mean? They're like, well, we require our students, and this was probably 2004 at the time, we require our students to be fully committed to the MBA program. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Well, their reasoning is their MBAs at the time were going into oil and gas, going to Wall Street.
Not entrepreneurs.
There was not entrepreneurial at the time. And now, obviously, the world has changed. So that's my claim to higher ed. And so I had stayed at great school. I stayed at the University of Houston, Clear Lake, and It was a lot of fun, but let's talk about this idea of performance, measuring performance.
Yeah.
Not just for ourselves, but I mean, we think about the financial brands that we work with. Why is performance measurement such a challenge when it comes to things like financial marketing? It's 2025. You think we'd have cracked this nut by now, right? With all the data and the technology that we have.
Yeah. Why is it a challenge? That's an interesting question. So maybe let me just talk through what I see and we can then figure out why is it a challenge. What I see is, and I'm mostly looking at this from the website perspective, because we've specialized in analytics and A/B testing and actually making your most important marketing tool actually perform for you. So what we see is pretty much everyone has Google Analytics installed, and pretty much everyone doesn't look at it. And I
okay, that's like joining. We'll call it Weight Watchers. My mom did Weight Watchers. That's like joining Weight Watchers, but you don't show up for the weigh-ins.
Sure. Yeah, I guess except everyone knows that they should have it and they should look at it and it's free, so you just set it up. But then I think most people don't know what to look at is part of it. The other part of it is it seems like they're so busy with doing other things in marketing that they don't make time for looking at it. But what's interesting is it seems like so many of the marketing activities that financial institutions are doing are often not nearly as measurable as everything you're doing in digital. That's one of the things that makes digital so powerful, is that you can measure pretty much everything. You can measure the entire funnel, from someone coming from an advertising platform, coming to your website, all the way through to completing an application, maybe sometimes even beyond that. It's very measurable, but it seems like I know that that's not happening. Pretty much no one initially, when we talk with them, do they have even conversion funnels set up. So why is that? Especially when I think everyone knows they should be doing it. I guess my theories would come down to some of them don't know how to actually do it. They have Google Analytics, but they don't know how to actually make use of it. Because Google Analytics out of the box doesn't help you determine, is my website converting? So I think maybe not knowing what to actually do with the analytics could be part of it. Another part could be being busy with other marketing activities that there is no measurement to move the needle, but it's like always been done. You've always sent these mailers, so you got to keep sending the mailers. And then I think third, the vendors they're working with are not doing it for them either. So I think there's a gap there. Is like people that are building websites for credit unions and banks they're not setting up the funnels for them either. So the service isn't available. I'm interested. You've worked with a lot of financial institutions on like doing secret shopping on their websites, and what's your perspective on that? Why do you think people haven't been setting up conversion funnels and really measuring results?
Well, it's funny because actually I pulled up this book right here.
Yeah.
Because I wrote a chapter about it. I was like, what did I write about this? It's chapter 12. And the title of the chapter is "We Will Prove Marketing's Value Once and for All." And it's weird now, kind of going back and reading what I wrote. So now in this final chapter of the book, we're turning our attention to performance, which is our whole conversation today. When you think about what to measure, and you're right about Google Analytics, There's complexity there. But then you mentioned something too. It's like there's all this offsite activity.
Mm-hmm.
So you could be buying traffic from a variety of sources, paid, search, organic search. You're not buying it, but you still are buying it to a degree because you have to do something to get the organic traffic. Display, and there's a variety of sources for display. So you have that measure of metrics. We'll call that awareness. So before even the traffic hits to the site. So there's that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's on-site traffic. And go back to off-site traffic too. You've got all of your email data. You're sending emails. So you get all these data sources driving traffic to the site. Well, that just, and I've heard it, they're like, well, that's just so much to measure. So we'll just do what we've always done because we think it's working. Well, how do you know it's working? What's performance? What does success look like? And they'll say things like clicks and traffic and likes, social media, once again, off-site. So you get, people are liking it. We got our organic reach. So there's all these, what I call vanity metrics. And they make marketing teams feel really good. Like, we're doing all of this work. We're doing all this activity. Like, yeah, but how is that directly translating down to the bottom line?
Right.
So the results that the C-suite cares about, which really is deposits, loans, and assets. So you've got this awareness gap internally, this language gap. Are we even on the same page of what we need to measure to begin with in the first place?
Yeah.
Because if we don't have clarity on that, then we're going to be, it's like we're speaking two different languages, coming back to our conversations of art versus science with our previous episodes.
Yeah. And I can relate to where people are coming from here, because when we started our journey in working with financial institutions on their websites, we came into the industry and looked around and saw that there were a lot of ugly websites. And we said, oh, we can fix that. We can make websites that look good. And we did. We won a lot of awards for that. And it took us a while before, like, this unsettling feeling set in, where we were making websites that looked good, were winning awards, but we could not tell you if the websites were actually moving the needle for the financial institutions that we built them for. That is ultimately what drove us toward analytics and A/B testing and actually measuring.
Yeah, but that idea of those awards, and I was right there with you in my younger years, that's all vanity.
Totally.
In the degree, the awards are not helping the performance of an institution.
Right.
They stroke the ego of a marketing team, and the marketing team then comes back and has all of this quote unquote hardware. And I've seen it. I've seen it in their conference room. I've seen it in their meeting rooms, and they're all proud. And great, be proud of that. But like, let's drop to the bottom line, which is the whole point of executives and CEOs. And there was a study from the 4E's group. I don't have it off the top of my head. The majority of CEOs do not trust marketing. The CMO is in such a hot seat right now. And this is across the board, not just in financial services, because this idea of vanity or intangible measurements is, it's getting to the point to where it's like, okay, we're investing all of these dollars. What are we getting out of it? And on the flip side, though, I want to push back, because yes, it's easy to measure what we'll call demand metrics. So clicks to conversions, click to funded. Like, yeah, we can measure all of that. We have that capability now. And to your point, we're not at many institutions, but we also can't devalue brand. And you and I probably can hash this out on another conversation. We might even have a different opinion on this, because in this age of AI, I do believe brand will become a very meaningful metric. I just don't know how to quantifiably measure it, because brand is really you're planting seeds in the minds of people that sometimes take weeks, months, years to influence a behavior one way or another. So even the way people are going to buy in this age of AI, I think that's going to shift. And what role does brand and demand and clicks and conversions, how is all that going to shift? We'll talk about that more in another episode, I know, but
Sure.
it's just kind of where my mind is right now with measurement here.
Yeah, and I don't want to minimize the importance of brand either. I think largely brand is going to play the same role going forward, even if people are interacting with brands in a different way. Your branding is important for creating trust and creating a connection. When I think of brand, a lot of people think about colors and logos and fonts, and that's part of it, but it's really about who are you as an organization and what can you do for me, and those visual aspects are just things that should help to reinforce that. And I all the time find myself, and I don't want to minimize either the importance of having a good looking brand and a good looking website. I'd say my beef is just when there's so much emphasis placed there, and like you launch a new website that looks good and you call it good and you don't measure its performance at all. That's the problem. And you've been talking about vanity metrics, and really what people should be measuring is as far down on the conversion funnel as they can go. So
I want to loop back to something, because you brought up secret shopping before. And I even think about some of the studies that we've done, because you got qualitative and quantitative studies. Qualitative is the why people do what they do. It's thick data, so smaller data set. Quantitative is what people are doing at a macro level. And we've even gained insights from click maps, scroll maps, for example.
Yeah.
Very interesting to see, placement of CTAs. And the hypothesis becomes of, okay, why aren't you getting conversions? Well, because 10% of people are actually seeing your CTA. And then you have the complexity of, is it desktop based? Is it mobile based? And then, well, where should we be looking at our efforts? We'll come back to Google Analytics and where's the majority of your traffic coming, particularly on a product page. But let's go beyond the vanity metrics and look at metrics that matter most. Because if we strip everything down, the vanity metrics, I think, they're activity-based metrics. And activities make people feel good because they feel productive. I'm of the camp, though, let's work smarter, not harder, because we can have all the activity in the world, but if it's not producing a bottom line result, then we're just wasting our time, effort, and energy. But if we come to the more of the outcome-based metrics, well, that's what senior leadership team, that's what the chief lending officer, that's what the CFO, that's what the board is really interested in, is the outcomes of the activity. So let's not even worry. Yes, leading indicators versus lagging indicators, I get it. Like, it's important to measure activity because it's going to give us it's like an airplane. Are we gaining altitude or are we losing altitude? Because some of those activity-based top of funnel metrics will help to determine 3, 6, 9, 12 months down the road. Yeah, we're losing altitude and we're going to crash. So let's pull up and get some altitude once again. That makes sense. But what are the outcomes that financial brands need to be thinking about when it comes to digital channels, digital activities, building a website that sells?
In one word, profit. Which credit unions that are listening to this may be like, well, we're a not-for-profit or we're a non-profit. Yes, but you still have to run your organization profitably in order to serve your members and in order to actually run a successful organization. You can't be losing money. So is your digital marketing producing a profit? When you are running an ad and you're sending that to a landing page or to your website, is it a profitable transaction? And the only way to know that is you have to set up the metrics. You have to set up a conversion funnel that shows you how many people are coming to a particular page of your website. How many, and then how much are you paying to get them there? How many of them start applications? How many of them complete applications? And ultimately, how many of them actually fund an account or get a loan from you? So profit.
Hey, it's JR. If you want to know where you're winning and where you're leaking growth, text me right now, 832-240-1922. That's because I want to send you a free benchmark for my friends over at Website. It is a website benchmark. It takes less than a minute to see how your website stacks up, how it compares to other peers, and most importantly, what you can do next to maximize your digital growth. Well, and I think it's all language, because you can go from activity-based metrics and start associating those activities with outcome being profit, bottom line, asset, loans, deposit growth. But I came back to banking on digital growth in chapter 12, and there's two things that I surfaced here looking back. Number one is the research that we did. We found that 89% of financial brands do not have full funnel closed loop marketing reporting systems in place. So if we don't know,
80 to 90%?
89%.
Okay. So 11% do?
Yeah. So that's a great way.
That's high, that's higher than I've seen. So I was surprised it was even 11%.
Yeah. And then the second to that is when you come back to what I was mentioning with marketing and trust. Here was the data on this from the 4Nays group. They found that 80% of CEOs don't trust marketers. Meanwhile, 73% of CEOs believe marketers lack business credibility and the ability to actually generate growth. On the flip side, CEOs trust the value and the insights of CFOs and CIOs. This gets back to our previous conversations in the past couple of episodes of art versus science, and I'm curious: is it the creative brain versus the analytical brain at that point? Is it just the way that marketers are wired from creativity, art, versus the analytical aspect of a CFO or a CIO, the science? Historically?
Yeah. So do you mean, we were talking about this a little bit in previous episode. Yeah. So is it the fact that people that are drawn to marketing are more creative, less analytical, so therefore they don't quantify, and therefore they don't have the credibility with CEOs, CFOs, and CIOs who are more quantitative? Is that what you mean?
That's the question.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, and I wrote about this earlier in the book. It's the left brain versus the right brain. Both parts are important, but if we're speaking and literally seeing the world differently, we're ripe for conflict. And that's where it comes back to, let's get a common language. The common language, back to your word, is the P word. It's the profit. And we can start associating profitability with different activities in the funnel. But to do that, I call these the three foundational numbers in the book. They're easy questions, and I would think they would be obvious to begin with. But when you start asking the question, you start seeing people shift in their seats, and they get really uncomfortable really fast. And the questions is, what's the average lifetime value of your account holder? Number one. Number two, what's your average net interest income for a particular loan product broken down by product? So auto, mortgage, credit card, etc. And then when you think about the credit card, what's the average profitability of a credit card holder? Because now you can associate, okay, we know that, for example, the average lifetime value for a new checking account holder, spending account, let's just is $1,500, which is some of the data that I've seen across the industry. So every time that we get a new account holder at a bank or a member at a credit union, we know that the average lifetime value is going to be around $1,500.
That's the profit that they get lifetime, 1,500.
Correct.
Okay, sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So $1,500 is how much value, profit, income that this new account is going to bring.
Yeah.
So we get 100 new accounts per month. That's $150,000. We do that 12 times a year. That's 1.8 million. See, you're talking to the marketer right here. Gotta help me out.
I have to bust out the calculator.
I'm busting out the calculator right now, because if we do 1,500 times 100, it's 150 times 12. That's good. 1.8 million.
Nice.
Yeah. 1.8 million over the course of a year. So just having some of those foundational numbers that have nothing to do with activity yet, but we're starting with the end in mind and are able to begin to do profitability analysis and work backwards.
Yeah.
And then work into activity. How does that shift the thinking, do you think?
The shift that I see is when you actually put dollars on conversions and associate dollars with your analytics, it becomes much more obvious how big opportunities are and that you should be investing in it. And it helps you determine which opportunities to go after. So what we've seen with Metrify, the questions that you just asked are fantastic. And, you're reading from the book about like those profitability metrics. In my experience, like you said, people start to squirm in their seats. A lot of times they don't have those numbers, and they should have them, but they don't. And so where we start with it in Metrify, actually in our software, what we plug in is what everyone can get us is they can tell us approximately if someone applies for an auto loan, or someone gets an auto loan from a financial institution, what's the average loan amount? They can go pull that data. What's the average loan amount? Let's just start with that and get that across all of your different loan products. Same thing for deposit products. When someone opens an account, what's the average amount that they deposit within the first 12 months? So you just start with those numbers, loan amounts, deposit amounts, and then we use ROAA, return on average assets, and basically just multiply ROAA by those asset amounts to approximate profit. So is it a perfect metric? Could it be better? Totally. And we'd like for it to be better. But that at least gives a great starting point so that we can say, all right, your auto loan funnel is currently producing $5 million per year. But based on this conversion funnel, you have a lot of people dropping off at this step. Like, let's just say your auto loan page itself is getting a below average number of people to start applications. Therefore, you need to, that's the point in this funnel. That's the point in your conversion that needs to be improved. So that helps you pinpoint it. And you can say now, well, if we can get this on par, and what I mean by on par is get it to match the average that we see when we're benchmarking against other financial institutions, then that's going to mean $5 million more dollars. So now it's like you're not just talking in clicks and users, you're talking in dollars. And now you can say, yeah, it's worth allocating this much money to solve this problem because there's this much potential in dollars. So I think it totally changes the game when you start to put dollars on it.
As you were talking, I got really nerdy and started doing just a very quick model. And this, I think, would be helpful for those watching or listening, because what you're speaking to it is measuring performance tied to almost a common denominator, a language that is important across the organization. And I guess this is would be a challenge for those watching or listening. What if you never ever? Because I do know that there are institutions that do report back, like, this is how much traffic that we got, this is how many clicks that we got. That's great, but what if we never talked in those numbers again? What if we only said, for example, I'm going to come back and we'll say over the course of a year, we opened 1,000 new checking accounts digitally through our digital channels, our website. And we know that the average lifetime value is $1,500. So that's $1.5 million in revenue, profit there, income, net interest income. Then from there, it's like, okay, well, what is it going to take to get 1,000 funded accounts? Well, we know that 80% of people who start the application process online will most likely abandon. So that's that's another number that we can get when we start putting and building models for this.
Yeah, and quick note on that, you can actually know that number, and most people don't know that
number.
Yeah, and it varies.
Yeah,
we've seen it varies by application. Sometimes it is 80% drop off. Sometimes it's way better. Sometimes it's worse. But the first problem is not knowing the number. So sorry, keep going.
No, it's a great point. And so I just use 80 because, like you, it's like, sometimes we'll see a 60% abandonment rate. Sometimes we'll see a 90+ % abandonment rate. So we'll just use 80.
Yeah, great.
Because like you said, when you take your model and you go to ROAA and you tie that back to the average loan amount, it's not perfect science, but it's better than what we had before.
Oh yeah, it's 100 times better.
And when you think about measuring performance it doesn't have to be exact. It's measuring progress. And maybe that's a better way to frame like this. This isn't about performance measurement. It's about progress measurement. It's like, are we better off than where we were 3, 6, 9, 12, 36 months ago?
Yeah, I think the idea is ideally you would want the perfect measurements, right?
Of course.
But don't let perfect get in the way of good. Not having anything because, well, we can't measure it perfectly, so we're not going to have anything. That's 100 times worse than having something that gets you in the ballpark. And from what I've experienced, using those numbers with assets generated in ROAA, everyone seems to readily accept that as a great starting point because right now they're starting from nothing, 0. So it gets you in a good ballpark.
And that's where I want to come, is get you in a good ballpark. So 1,000 conversions over the course of a year. And when I say conversions, I'm talking about an actual funded account.
Yeah.
You're looking at 1.5 million in lifetime value. But what do you have to do to get there? Well, if you have an 80% conversion rate, you have to have 5,000 starts. Well, what do you have to do to get 5,000 starts? Well, let's assume you have a 10% click-through rate on the actual application. So what does that mean? You need 50,000 visits to that page. So 50,000, 10% click-through rate will get you 5,000 starts on the application, 80% abandoned, 20% complete. That gets you your 1,000 conversions. But what if you don't talk about the traffic? Meaning that instead of talking about 50,000 visits, that's $75 million worth of potential opportunity right there. That hit our page. Instead of talking about 5,000 starts on the application, that's $7.5 million worth of opportunity that started the application.
Yep.
Instead of talking about 1,000 conversions, that's $1.5 million worth of lifetime value that converted and funded their application. Meaning we lost $6 million between starting the application and completing the application. When you start talking about loss, like we lost $6 million, what is it going to take to stop losing $6 million and we'll gain back $500,000, $1 million, $2 million? I think that's where the idea of what you're doing is so exciting, because we don't know. So let's test it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're pointing out a couple of things that are super important as well. One of them is once you have that conversion funnel mapped and you have a dollar amount associated with what a conversion is worth to you, then you can calculate your profit per user at every step of the funnel. And so now this helps, mapping out your conversion funnel is important for understanding conversion rates and being able to optimize conversion rates, but it also helps with traffic generation, because now you can look at a funnel and say, every time someone lands on this product page, like let's say a home equity line of credit, HELOC page, every time someone lands on this page, we are making $100 of profit. Then the question is, okay, if we go to an advertising platform or SEO, some means of driving traffic, can we pay less than $100 to get another user? And if you can, every single additional user that you get for less than $100, you are making profit. And so it just becomes like a math game.
Well, it's arbitrage at that point. Like you're arbitraging traffic.
Yeah.
Because why would I not pay $10, $20, even $50 to make $100? I just doubled my money at that point.
Yeah. You profit $100, you can pay, up to $99 and you're still making $1. That's so I'm a little bit of an economics nerd, so I'm gonna bring this in here. An economist would say that you want to optimize until marginal benefit equals marginal cost. So like initially when you start to drive more traffic, if you're making $100 each, the first time you go to drive more traffic, you might, maybe you're paying $10, and then it's $20, just like as you're tapping all of the different ways that you could drive traffic. And over time, it gets more expensive. You would want to continue to drive more traffic until it equals $100. And that's how you maximize your profit, is when marginal benefit, $100, equals marginal cost, $100. So that's really, it just becomes a numbers game. And of course, the creativity that's still needed is to figure out, what do you say and show in an ad or on a web page that is going to produce conversion and get people to come. So there's still, it's not about eliminating creativity. It's rather quantifying the value of the creativity. And one more thing I want to add is there is a compounding effect here, because
what do you mean?
Well, when you got this funnel, imagine you got a funnel where, so the numbers you used are 10% people from a product page starting an application, and then people that start an application, 20% finish. Well, at these different conversion points in the funnel, if let's say you first double the percentage of people that are starting the application, you go from 10 to 20%, that doubles, and all else holds equal. Doesn't always happen, but if all else holds equal,
a big word, ceteris paribus.
Yes, ceteris paribus. Yes, exactly. Thank you for satisfying my economic nerdiness. Ceteris paribus. You've doubled your conversion rate at the end of the funnel, and then you can go to your application completion rate. You double that, and now you haven't just you haven't doubled your overall conversion rate, you've quadrupled it, because you've now get a compounding effect where you double here, you quadruple. So there's so much opportunity that unlocks when you map your conversion funnel, your conversion points, and you put dollar figures on it. You know how much you can invest in improving it and how much potential there is to get out of it. It's a huge unlock.
It's a huge unlock, and it comes down to a couple of points as we wrap up. I think it's thinking about performance is progress. There's a common language that needs to be established. Profit, bottom line, activity. And once we have that bottom line number, that can then drive all higher up activity in the funnel. For someone who is watching or listening right now, and they're like, I want to do this, because I know what I've been measuring has probably been on the vanity side. And we're not casting any judgment whatsoever. Like, we get it. We're going to meet you where you're at. And if you don't know, you don't know. If you don't have the capability, you don't have the capability. But you're seeing things differently now. You might be thinking, oh my gosh, it's a lot. Like, I don't want to leave people feeling overwhelmed. I want them to leave feeling like I can do one thing right now, and it's going to lead to performance progress.
Mm-hmm.
What's the first thing that they can do? I've got an idea, but I don't get your idea for it. What's the first thing that they can do to just at least get progress when it comes to measuring performance?
Yeah. Go sign up for Metrify right now, metrify.com. That's exactly what it does. You take 2 minutes to connect your Google Analytics account, and then Metrify literally goes and maps all of your conversion funnels for you, compares your conversion funnels against other financial institutions to see how well they're doing, tells you how much money you're currently generating through your site and how much money you could be for the whole site and on a funnel by funnel basis. So yeah, this is some shameless promotion right now, but this is exactly why we built Metrify, to solve this exact problem.
But even then, it's not even, I would say it's not shameless promotion. They don't have to pay anything for this. No, it's just a matter of being able to benchmark where they're at today. And once you know, and I think that's the very first step. The other thing, and you just made it even easier for your activity, was far easier than what mine was. Mine was start to ask questions. Start to ask questions about, well, what is our average lifetime value for a new account holder? What is our average profitability for a loan product? What is our average net interest income that comes from our credit card? What is our abandonment rate? Start asking the hard questions. But you just made it even that much easier. Just go plug in your Google Analytics data that you probably aren't even looking at right now to begin with in the first place.
Yeah. And I think those are all important questions. I do think people sometimes they get hung up on those because they'll go back to like someone in finance or the CFO and they try to start to gather that data and they're like, well, we don't have it, or yeah, I'll get that to you. And so they should definitely be asking those questions. What we found is most people don't have those answers out the gate. So what we do at Metrify is we'll take data that we have from other financial institutions, like across all the institutions we work with. What's the average amount that someone gets when someone completes an auto loan application, gets the auto loan? What's the average amount that's funded across all these that we've worked with? Like, out the gate, we're just going to use that average, because then you can start seeing those numbers without having to get anything, and then go and ask your CFO for this data, and we can come back and update it and plug it in specifically for your institution. So just trying to make that whole process as easy as possible.
Yeah, and I think, the final ask, because you brought the CEO, CFO back into this, if you're in marketing and you're listening to this conversation, share this conversation with your CEO, share this conversation with your CFO. We want marketing to matter, and that starts by measuring what matters most, and that's how you create the progress of performance. But it all starts with just a very small, simple step. Let's crawl, then we're going to walk, and then we're going to run together.
Yeah, it starts by measuring.
As we start to wrap up today, if you are ready to stop guessing and start growing, text me right now, 832-240-1922. That's because I want to send you a free website benchmark study from my friends over at Metrify. It's the first step to making marketing measurable and, most importantly, making your digital growth more predictable.